Hello my friends, how are you feeling today? If you are new to my channel, welcome. Today we are going to talk about how to have a perfect first date. These tips are more relevant if you are in an interracial dating, meaning if you and your partner, you are from two different races. Now, if you are dating a person from the same race, you could still use the same rules. See if this applies to you. If you have been to my channel, you know that I normally share 3 tips. Tip number 1, start with a coffee date. Don't start with lunch or dinner and movie, those kind of things, because sometimes what happens is if you don't like the person or when you start the date and if it didn't really click, then you kind of get stuck in that date and you don't know how to get out of it unless you tell a friend to call you in between when you're on a date and call for some sort of emergency and then you have to leave the date. Without getting a friend involved, you can just do it yourself. I learned it the hard way because before I met Bill, who is my husband now, I had lots of bad dates. One time, I actually had a date. We planned for lunch and a movie together. After maybe about 10 minutes, I met the guy. I knew that I'm definitely not going to go on a second date with this guy. But I didn't know how to end it, and I didn't tell anybody to call me in between when I was on a date to show some sort of emergency or something. We had lunch and we had movie, but definitely I didn't enjoy it. So since then I realized that okay, from now on I'm just going to start with a coffee date, and that actually worked perfect. So for Bill and I, when we met almost 11 years ago now, we started with a coffee and it was perfect. I'll tell more about that later. Tip number 2, a lot of people would say on your first date, don't talk about your exes. And yes, that's important because that kind of distracts you from both of you, your interests and what you like, what you dislike. It's important that you start fresh and you don't want to talk about the past relationships. But guess what? Sometimes it's important that you go with the flow. Believe it or not, in our case, we actually did talk about our exes. We talked about our past relationship, which is a complete no-no. The way the flow was going, we both felt comfortable and it was okay. And in some sense, because we come from two different races, Bill is white and I'm Indian, it was actually good for both of us to know how much we knew about each other's races and the culture, because to me it was really interesting to find out that Bill actually dated other Indian girls before. So he knew some of the things, how Indian girls would be different than American girls. And same thing for me, I dated other white guys before, so I had some generic idea. For us, it was actually helpful. For you, normally you definitely don't want to talk about your past relationship or your exes, but if there is something that you see that if you're going with the flow and if it is something one person has shared and you find it helpful, go with the flow and see what works for you. Because you know, even in dating, one size doesn't fit all. So you want to see what works for you and go with that, and that could benefit you. Because in our case, it definitely did. We are together for almost 11 years now. Here is our product. Alice, our daughter, she is 5.5 years old. Number 3, it's always good to start with a coffee date on your first date, because if you both like it, if you see that the chemistry is going well and it really clicked, there's always a way to prolong the date. So in our case, what happened, Bill learned something from internet before we met. He learned some Hindi. So Hindi is Indian language. We started our date around 2 o'clock, just early afternoon. We started with coffee and it was going really well. So later in the afternoon, as we started talking about different things we both really liked and we connected well, he asked me for dinner and he asked me with that broken Hindi. I found it really funny. Of course, I was enjoying his company, and when he asked me for dinner in that broken Hindi and with the American accent, I don't remember exactly the words he said. Aap mere saath dinner chalenge or something like that he said, which is not perfect Hindi, but to me it was very impressive and funny. I liked his humor, and that's one of the reasons I married him. So anyway, we decided after he asked, I said, oh, definitely I'm gonna go for dinner with him. And then we went to Olive Garden on our first date. And then after dinner, we ended our first date. That night on, every day we communicated and met every weekend, and here we are today. So the point is that start with coffee. Like I said, number one, start with coffee. Number two, go with the flow. As much as you want to follow the rules from dating book, you want to go with the flow and see what works for you. Number three, learn something different. The example from our relationship is learning the language, or you could learn something interesting from their culture. Let's say you are American, let's say you are dating somebody from Vietnam, and learn something about Vietnamese culture. And then when you talk about that somehow you can impress the person in a different way than someone else would. That is it for today, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it with others who you think might also benefit from this video. And please comment below if you want me to cover something specific related to dating, interracial dating, or any other dating tips you want to know. I would be very happy to cover this in one of my upcoming videos. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give a thumbs up, because that's how YouTube knows that I exist and my videos come up, and I'd be able to share more videos with you guys. Have a wonderful day. I would like to see you again in the next video. Bye.